speaker. Jan, would you like to, speakers, I should say, would you like to introduce you? Thanks.
Introduce them. This is Carol Anderson and Vicki Nesbitt, and they are from Bloom. Bloom offers sanctuary and a continuum of care to heal, empower, and employ women survivors of sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. Bloom empowers women to heal and create a new future through its emergency response, its 2-year residential program, pregnant survivor services, and its independent living housing. And they were with us, I think about a year ago, and they have some exciting news to share. I'm so happy to welcome them back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Do your speakers typically sit?
You can sit or stand, whatever you like.
So it does feel more like a conversation when I'm sitting. So I will, you'll grant me that. I appreciate that. Thank you. So glad to be welcomed back. We do appreciate the support of our community and even just those willing to learn more about this very complex and I think sometimes misunderstood work that we do. As Jan mentioned, we work with women survivors of sex trafficking and sexual exploitation, and it happens in every community. I think, like many people that I have talked with over the past years of doing this work, there was a time in my life where I thought that trafficking of individuals was something that happened in third world countries. But the more I learned about the issue itself and the laws protecting individuals and this crime, I came to understand that it's much broader than I had originally thought. And while it does include someone being taken against their will and held against their will physically, it really does that the people that we work with extends to people who may be emotionally trapped in a situation, or perhaps their choice was taken from them at a younger age because they experienced significant neglect or childhood sexual abuse that led them to a life of thinking that their body is to be used as a commodity. So we work with only adult women, 18 and older, and we are probably, I believe we are the only program in the Lehigh Valley that offers longer term services to survivors of trafficking and exploitation. There are programs for youth through Valley Youth House. They have a residence for 14 to 23-year-olds. And they have their expertise is in youth programming, and we're very grateful for that. They're one of our collaborative partners. And then there is a short-term shelter that can take people on an emergency basis that works with both labor and sex trafficking. You may be familiar with Turning Point Lehigh Valley and the Crime Victims Council. They're wonderful, wonderful collaborative partners of ours, but they receive funding that is pretty specific to work on a shorter term basis with victims of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And some of the individuals that we work with may not qualify for their services because they may not be in immediate physical danger. And our program is long term. As Jan mentioned, we have 3 long-term residences that are for up to 2 years. We have 1 in Bangor, 1 in Bethlehem, and then we have our newest program that opened Monday in Allentown. And that is something that we had dreamed about, and we really were not, kind of came as a surprise. We had explored another facility for about a year. We were looking at a convent that was vacant, and that was pretty large, had 18 bedrooms, and we were looking to convert that, and that was going to be, we were going to need to raise $1 million, over $1 million, to outfit that to be adequate for use. And then thinking about having 8 to 12 individuals living in there with their babies was a feat of unimaginable heights. So in June, we were approached by a donor who wanted us to consider a home in Allentown. It's a beautiful home on in a lovely neighborhood near a park, and it required some renovation, and we're so close to having all those complete, but I do have a small punch list. But we moved women into that home on Monday. So That is a 4-bedroom home. We're going to be able to have up to 4 women living there and their babies. And they can come into us pregnant, or they can come in with a small child. We want to stop at kind of 3 years of age, just because things change dramatically once the child reaches 3, in terms of what the child needs, and as well as what mom needs. So we believe this is a significant, we know that it's a significantly unmet need, where pregnant survivors who have been exploited can come into a safe place, have their babies, and then learn how to parent in living life clean, free from drug, any kind of substance use, and then to become a parent. It's been a pretty remarkable experience so far. In the fall, because we knew this home was going to open, we welcomed our first participant, who was 5 months pregnant and was actively using up to 5 days before she came. So early on into her experience with us at her first sonogram, there was something that warranted the baby to come to be referred to CHOP. So we spent a day there of testing in December, and we're hit with some hard news. Mom was really, really, really disturbed over what she learned, and that the baby had, whether it was a stroke or some kind of brain issue that had occurred in the time before she came to us, there was some additional fluid buildup in one of the brain ventricles.
Yes.
And they were going to monitor it, but if it continued to grow, she would have to be delivered via C-section and then have a shunt put in so that the fluid could be drained. And there more than likely were going to be some developmental delays. And that news was hard to hear. But we came back to the Lehigh Valley, and over the next 3 months, just continued to eat healthy, attend all the doctor's appointments, take her prenatal vitamins. And the Thursday before her scheduled delivery, which was the end of January, met with a neurosurgeon that was going to do the surgery once the baby was delivered, because it was going to require surgery within 24 hours, just to prepare mom for what it was going to be like. And then just a lifelong experience of monitoring this issue. And so when the baby was born on that Tuesday morning, though, the baby was born perfect and didn't require any surgery. And that was really a shock, I think, to a lot of the physicians. They brought the baby up to the neonatal intensive care unit for observation right away, and said, we'll be back in 6 to 8 hours after we've run all our tests so we can prepare her for surgery. And within 2 hours, the baby was brought back downstairs, and she was perfect. And I tell you that story just to let you know how much of an impact, while it is hard to prove the savings to a community, when programs like this exist, where women can come to a safe place and spend a long period of time to learn how to live differently. It requires an entire change of mindset and finding skills within yourself that many of these women don't even realize exist. So if you've been raised in a culture and an environment where people are commenting on your body, specifically talking about your body parts at family gatherings and events, and then used for other people's enjoyment, and not giving any thought to what do I want, what am I good at in life, and then making a living in that way, it's very distorted. And it comes with an awful lot of violence and trauma. I mean, this is, some of us remember the movie Pretty Woman. Richard Gere is not showing up at the door to take these women out to a nice dinner. The attitude of someone who's buying a woman's services for sex is, I'm going to get what I paid for. And so a large majority of these experiences are violent and very humiliating. So when you're conditioned over time, and some of these women, we had one woman last year that she was arrested, I think 47 times, and she was only in her early 40s, but had lost all her teeth. The health issues that she was experiencing were significant. So I tell you this, that the cost to a community is high. To continue to send someone to inpatient treatment can be anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 a stay. Our program costs that per year. It costs $25,000 a year to care for someone, to support them, as they become taxpayers and go back and earn a living, they get their kids back from foster care. This reduces pressure on a community to then care for a child through the entire 18 years of foster care. And not only, when we see healthy birth weights, that's significant alone, but even just during this prenatal period when the baby is growing, I do believe this was a miracle. I think there are going to be benefits that may not be quantifiable right away, that reduce the burden on the medical community, as well as the community at large in public services. We've seen women who, have been working in the life, they refer to it as the life even themselves, for decades. And they turn around and make a significant, 180 degrees? Yeah, not 360. 180 degree change. And we see them dreaming completely different dreams for their lives. Going to college, graduating college, and really then becoming contributing members of society. And not only that, but our vision for this coming year, as I mentioned, we have 3 homes, one in Bangor, one in Bethlehem, and now this newest one in Allentown. And then we have 2 homes for women who do well in our program and complete the program. At those 2, we call them graduate residences or transitional living homes. They each get their own room, they get a lease, they pay rent, and they live fairly independently. But not only that, but they are mentoring new women in the program. They're sponsoring them. They're listening to when the women early on think that this is too hard, it's too humiliating to, admit to walk through the trauma of my experience, to reveal that maybe the people in my family or in the community that I thought was helping me are not safe. And so how do I develop new relationships with people that I don't feel are like me? It can be very, very scary. But we're seeing that these women that have been with us for the 2 years already are coming around, and they're encouraging the newer ones to come along, and they're letting them know they can choose differently. They can actually choose, like it's up to them. So that's very, very exciting to see. We run 2 businesses because part of rebuilding a life, as we all know, I'm sure we're all people who have worked. I mean, I got a job as soon as I could when I was a young person, and I'm sure many of you in this room have as well. But to get a legitimate job and finding safe employment is so important to us. And I forgot to start my timer. I'm just realizing that now. I'm sorry. But to get a job is such an important part of that. First, we want them to learn how to trust safe people and define what a safe person is, and then to be able to build that trust and to experience safety and living in a community. And what is it like to trust my housemates, to trust staff, and then to use services in the community that I thought maybe were there to harm me. But it's a whole new building of relationships that we teach during the first couple of months. And then they start working, and we run 2 businesses, and we would love to employ all of the women early on in our program, but we can't yet. But we have 2 businesses. One is an art studio in Bangor that also is a gift shop, and they make some things there and resell them. And then we also we have several positions at our women's resale clothing store on Route 191. It's called My Sister's Closet. Some of you may have been there. That's right. I ran into you there once, Jan. No, thanks. I'll just have water. So finding safe employment where you are not re-exploited is really important. And while we may think that the workplace is a safe place, especially nowadays with so much focused on sexual harassment and what that is and what it isn't, oftentimes what we find is that women are re-exploited once they start working. We've had several women who have had to leave places of employment because they were either propositioned by an owner. Once the owner ran their background checks and saw that they had prostitution charges on their record, they feel that it's a green light for them to re-exploit. Or they are working in a space, maybe it's in service, like at a restaurant, where there's triggering experiences, or people are flirting with them, and they're kind of pulled back into this life of manipulating people to get what they need. So we want to offer them safe employment early on, especially during the first year that they're with us. And so our big dream this coming year is to open up a cafe in Allentown where we can, just be open probably from 7 or 8 in the morning until 2 to 4 in the afternoon, probably closed on 2 days a week, but a place where the women can step into a service career, which is very marketable, and then have a safe employment where we can control the culture and support them as they're learning some of these skills and learning a new way to live and gaining that confidence that says, I can work and develop skills other than trading my body to get what my needs are. That is about our program. There are a couple other things I just want to tell you about the issue itself, and then maybe we can talk about how you can get involved, or I think opportunities like this to get to know people in our community and have networking opportunities. We just never know who's going to connect us to someone who may be able to further the mission and support the women that work with us, or the women that come to us. This is happening in the Lehigh Valley. Not only are people being brought up from across the many highways that go throughout our area, but whenever you have sports events and gaming, there's a lot of entertainment that also lends itself to having trafficking as part of the experience here. People, when they're in this party atmosphere, they're willing to pay for sex. And we have a couple strip clubs in our area, and while they're not the ones that are largely responsible for a lot of the issues that are being investigated by law enforcement, it is a place where it does happen. I mean, traffickers are trading women there. They actually trade them like they traded slaves 100 years ago. It's crazy, but it is happening in the Lehigh Valley. Last year, in early 2022, the Lehigh County DA's office launched a task force in the Lehigh Valley where they brought in 7 Homeland Security agents to Allentown, and 3 of them are dedicated to sex crimes. And that should really frighten us, to wake us up and realize that this is happening. With online recruitment has increased. I think it was over 100% through the pandemic. And while many businesses were shut down, this transition to working online created a whole new area of exploitation. Photography and video is another way to exploit. And there are sites like OnlyFans and Pornhub that exploit women through video and photographs, and men as well, but the majority of the victims are women. So we're dealing with nuances in this work that didn't exist even five years ago. And just the rate of exploitation and the increase of exploitation around photography and video, and just how easily accessible it is to our broader communities is really creating additional traumas, and then even easy ways to kind of be drawn back into that life. It's sending messages to our young people that are just very, very, very disturbing. So it is happening here in the Lehigh Valley, and it's very close to home. We were on an operation with the Colonial Regional Police Department not all that long ago, and they do them periodically. They're really invested in keeping our communities safe. And when you have prostitution happening at a hotel, that we're not safe when that's happening. I mean, think about traveling with your family or with friends, and while it may go unnoticed, people are not safe when that's going on, in a hotel. There's a lot of gang-related trafficking. And it's a huge moneymaker. It's $150 billion every year that's earned annually on trafficking, and 95% of that is sex trafficking. There is labor trafficking. We don't work with labor trafficking victims, but it does occur. And another, fact is that Pennsylvania is 9th in the country for the number of reported trafficking cases to the national hotline. And we are the third largest urban area in the state of Pennsylvania. So we should not be surprised that this is happening. And it happens to just usually vulnerable young people get kind of sucked into this. And we want to change what's happening, what we want to change. We want to be there for someone who wants to leave that life. We're not actively involved in any kind of pursuit of buyers, but we are there for law enforcement if they have an operation or if they encounter a victim that needs help and services. Ways you can get involved. I'll wrap it up with that, and then I'll open it up to questions and leave it to anything Vicki may have to say. We have events that need sponsors. We have a golf event coming up. We have a walk that's happening on June 3rd, golf event on June 26th. And we have a fall dinner event that is like our major annual fundraiser. And we probably will have a graduation event. And that's really a special event because we want to celebrate those that spend 2 years with us and acknowledge their hard work and commitment to staying for that long, because it can be hard to share a room with somebody else for 2 years. And also, we always need volunteers to help drive our participants to services. We are really a grassroots movement that was started by 2 different organizations around in 2014 and 2015, Truth for Women and Bloom. Both started homes around that time, funded primarily through friends and church contacts. We started receiving some grants, I guess, in 2019 and 2020. And now we've probably tripled our budget over the past couple of years, acquiring 3 more homes. And we have big dreams. Like I said, we want to open up another social enterprise so everyone can have a safe job. And then we also want to do outreach. While we do partner with other organizations, and the Valley Against Sex Trafficking, VAST, is a community partner of ours, we want to do outreach to try to recruit women to come to our program. So that would involve facilitating groups in prison, going with the St. Luke's medical van when they do a street medical clinic, and just being there should anyone want to be screened, and they do screenings in prison and on some medical outreaches for potential trafficking victims, because we know it's happening, especially in the homeless community and people who don't have stable housing. I would love to answer your questions. And yes.
I would imagine there is a large number of abusive boyfriends or husbands, ex-husbands, who want to get back at these women. Are these locations that you have them, are they secret?
Great question. They are. I say they're undisclosed locations. So they're not safe houses because the women do receive mail there. They're their homes that they live in. We do have requirements around, not giving the address to people. You can't write a boyfriend in jail, or there's reasons for discharge, and that would be one of them, by giving it to an unsafe individual.
That's what measures do you have?
So one of them has an alarm system. The other 2 don't. I mean, I think this is a very good question. We have not, if someone is in a dangerous situation that would come to us, and we do get referrals that they would not be safe if they came to one of our homes, and we would refer them outside. We belong to 2 national networks, and so we wouldn't want to risk their safety nor anybody else's. So oftentimes, in my experience working with the women that we've worked with, by the time they're ready to leave this life, or if they want a way out, their perpetrator is onto somebody else. So when you have this, when it's more of an intimate partnership, if it's a spouse that's trafficking someone, which is not as likely as it is someone who really does this for a living, believe it or not. They'll have 7 to 10 women, 3 women, that they're setting up online dates for, that they're grooming, and or they're dropping 3 women off at a hotel, giving them phones, teaching them how to set up dates, how to respond to police if someone shows up at the hotel door. He's on to somebody else if she's interested in leaving, because he can go to a strip club and try to recruit somebody else. Or they even go to sober living homes. They travel to Lancaster and down to York and Reading to pick up women and bring them up here to Lehigh Valley. It's unbelievable. But you find someone who's addicted or who's dabbling in using and is vulnerable, and they provide them an endless supply of drugs, as well as a place to live, and make them promises. I've never seen anyone so beautiful as you. I think we could have a future together. She's hooked, line and sinker. And it'll ultimately, it's a grooming process, as Vicki said. And then, so safety is an issue. It's a concern of ours. We kind of screen for that, and then we would refer outside.
Say that because.
Hey, Carol?
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Thank you for your service. Yes.
Okay, Scar, I didn't mean to interrupt. You are Carol, right? No, Vicki, I'm sorry, I'm on.
I'm Carol.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Carol, I've got a question, and anytime, somebody like yourself, with organizations like yourself comes to present, I really feel like living in a bubble or something to know that all this is going on in our own backyards and not really that, aware of it. But in any event, are you seeing, we constantly hear about at the southern border, the number of how trafficking is so much a part of the issue with folks coming across down there. Are you seeing any of that, of those people that are coming up and being involved with your organization or wanting to be involved?
Not yet. We have not seen that yet. So, we anticipate that it's coming.
Mhm.
But we have not seen that yet, which is kind of interesting, but we haven't. It's not that it's not going on, but they haven't reached out to us.
Okay. All right, that's interesting.
Use the microphone.
Thank you.
Oh, I should have repeated your question.
It's kind of a follow-up to what Scott was asking. So all of the victims of sex trafficking that you work with are from here. They're not they're not trafficked in from other countries.
They are domestic. So from other states, sometimes they're brought here. Sometimes they don't even know where they're at.
Right. Interesting.
Mhm.
Wow. Do you know statistically the percentage overall in the country of sex? How many are from domestic and how many are foreign? Just to statistically know that?
That's a great question. I don't know but I would say the large majority of trafficked victims in the States are from the States.
Yes. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you, Sandy.
Hi, this is Sandy with Community Services for Children. I have a quick question. So I know we're working with women, and you did mention that there are also men that are in the same situation. Are you guys looking to open any facility, maybe one for men, or not now?
Not now. I think that would be wonderful, because I know that it's a need, but no, that's not right now.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have, so you talked about teaching them how to live a different life, change the way they perceive things. Do you have mentors or people who come in and provide lessons or a course of learning, some kind of education to kind of start moving them towards thinking differently about living their life?
We have what we call Flourish. It's our workforce development initiative, and it's been a little organic, until because we are grassroots and run a pretty lean staff, and we want to rely on existing services in the community. But because of their experience being so unique, and the exploitation that they've experienced, we realize that there is this need of a lot of training around self-worth and retraining our brain to identify what is it that I want, like what are my gifts and skills, and what do I have to contribute, and what makes me happy, or what my giftedness, where is that? So we feel that that's best done within, the house, within their community. So we do a lot of groups around that. Like we have community groups, probably there's 7 a week that they do that cover different topics. So what is a healthy relationship? And through that experience, they do career exploration. We did a couple times, we had worked with one of the community colleges has an adult assessment and development around what your skills are. And we've done some of those things. And then they do take personality tests and to try to find out, what are my interests. We have a lot of therapy. And then in addition to those groups that we do, there's a lot of mental health, right? A lot of therapy, a lot of trauma work, as well as substance use disorder treatment many people go to. And we had explored a mentoring program. That is a pretty significant initiative. And I think it could be fruitful. I think it could be very fruitful, especially working with people who have had careers that could then mentor and even come in and do, just topical discussions around how did I achieve success, or what are some of the challenges I experienced as I was promoted and overcame. And just because so much of this work is, I think it's like a new field, really. When we started with our national partner group, we were 8 in 2015 in the country, and now there's like 70 of us in this national partnerships. We were first in the state of Pennsylvania, and there's like 6 or 7 programs that follow the model we do now. But I think it's still, we're kind of learning that this is unique trauma that they've experienced, and to move beyond that and not manipulate and find other ways of finding a legitimate way of living. It's very, very different. And it's uncomfortable, I think, for some people to even talk about, to realize that this is going on. But, I think it's something that our community needs to address, because when you heal a woman, you really do heal a community. Everything changes, and it changes legacies going forward. And we believe that very much. And we're already seeing it. We're seeing it happen.
What a beautiful concept.
It is. It really, really is. And these are our sisters. They could be our daughters. And they want to be cared for well. One question I get asked a lot, and I know I keep talking, but people will say, well, can men be involved? I'm so glad to be here in this room with men, because while I can say you are part of the problem, because most of the buyers, there are women that buy sex, but the majority of them are upper middle class, educated men with disposable income. But we don't have like no men can be interacting with women in our program, because it's good when they understand what it's like to be treated, not like in a romantic way, but to be respected.
Dignity and respect.
Dignity and respect is so important. And just one experience I had with one woman who she's had horrific exploitation since she was probably 9. And she's in her late 20s. Actually, she's in her early 30s now. But one of the homes there's a gym that gives them all memberships. And we were going there, and several of the instructors were men. And she came up to me after going there for a little while and just said, I just have to tell you, I feel so safe here, because the instructors that are here they respect me. No one has ever flirted with me, made like strange comments about my body. And that can be very natural, for people to do. And they think it's a way to further a relationship or to get to know somebody. But most of the time it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I reached out to the owner and I just said, I hadn't thought of that, because while I've had my own experiences when I was younger, you cat calls or whatever they may be. It does happen, but I would say for most of my life, I've been treated with respect. So that was not her lived experience. Her lived experience was the opposite. And so this was completely new to her. And if we can teach our children and teach our male friends to be respectful. I'm assuming most of you are in this group, but when you think about it, there's a lot of joking, that we can, and you look at our movies and on TV and what our kids are exposed to, it's rampant. What sells alcohol or vacations? It's a bigger problem, but sometimes when I really think about it and when I think of the women and what they've been subjected to, and that I know so many good men that are in my circle of friends and family, I want them to meet them. So I'm bringing them over to the house. And if they're going to come and fix something, I want them to have a conversation with them. Like if there's a nice plumber, have a cup of coffee. I'm assuming the plumber is male. Right? I mean, the one wanted to go to Vicky's house because she liked her husband so much.
She's like, how's Bob? Oh, no.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Have you ever run into an situation yet? Have you ever run into a situation yet or thought about reaching out or contacting the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children? You've got these individuals here. Some of them could be either listed as missing persons or actual runaways from another part of the state or another part of our country.
Yes.
I'm also a retired detective.
Okay. That's a great question. And we are pretty careful to ask the women, what do they want? So we don't really, while I don't think I've run across anyone who is missing, because they do usually give us a history, like we do get a psychosocial history when someone comes in, because we want to identify anything that may make them unsafe, if they came to us. So we want to find out, like, where is your community? Where did you come from? And what is that like? There are some that it's vague, but I don't think we come across that a lot. But that's not to say that it might not be there. But again, we would leave it up to them to reach out to anything like that. We don't force anyone to reach out to law enforcement to pursue any kind of justice for their experience, even if they were a victim of a crime, nor do we probably push anyone towards reunification with their past. We really work with them and support them. And what do you want?
It's about them finding their voice,
Right.
because they haven't had they've kind of,
But they've been victimized. You're
That's-
talking early on about them being victimized.
yes,
I dealt with some of these situations.
I'm sure you
my
did.
career
Yeah.
as a law enforcement officer, and a lot of times the young ladies that get involved in prostitution were runaways or missing persons that were being exploited at an earlier age.
Right.
I don't think we've really run into that.
Right. Most of them have families that we've been aware of. I mean, there's been a couple that that have been brought here from out of state that we just never really connected the dots. We really supported them as they explored what was next for them. So, and again, we would never reach out independent of their doing that, because like Vicki said, it's finding their voice. We want them to be the driver of what's next for them. We kind of try to guide if they want our guidance, but again, it's all about them finding their voice rather than someone telling them what to do. That makes sense. They're 18 and up, but
We're going a little bit long. We could be here for probably another couple of hours.
I know.
Just
Thank
the
you for letting
questions
me
that
talk.
are rattling around in my brain.
Yeah.
So this will be the last question.
I was wondering what happens, you're taking on this new home where you're addressing children.
Mhm.
And so how about the care of the children, or are the women going to take turns perhaps, like if they're gonna work somewhere, or, and parenting classes, are you giving those or?
So we have community partners that do those things, and because, finding childcare is going to be important for the rest of their child raising years, we want them to connect with community services. So we work with Bright Hope is close to us, and they do parenting classes. There's a program through Head Start called Safe Start, I think. And we've met with them, and children and youth are well aware of what we're doing. So we want to connect with community partners first before we replicate anything and see how that goes. And they're not allowed to take care of each other's children. That's kind of a rule. But it's not that staff can't step in and, bounce a baby for a little bit if we need to. Yeah, but we will be looking for volunteers to help with in-house childcare, like when mom is home and needs to do laundry, or we want to have a group at the house. We will be looking for volunteers to come in and maybe care for the children while the mom is in an hour-long group. So
That's something that we could possibly.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to come take care of babies in the playroom, we have a playroom that's in the process of being set up. That would be a nice thing to do.
And that actually leads me to great segue. How can we support?
Well, I mentioned, we have this golf outing, attending our events, clothing drives for My Sister's Closet, shopping there, encouraging people to shop there. Thank you for those of you that do. I ran into Jan there. It's really great. If you have connections in the restaurant industry and want to help us there, we need board members, we need advisory council members. There's different ways you can get involved. I can leave my card, or you can get in touch with us online. We always need things for our home. I'm looking for a carpeting now to install in the hallway. I mean, things like that. We always need things. We always need repair people to help us with that. And that's how you can help. And thank you for listening. Becoming an educated community member is important because you can advocate then at whatever level your area of influence covers. So thank you for listening and talking so
Thank
long.
you so much. It's very informative, very eye-opening, very disturbing. And it's so glad to have you here. Thank you very much. Nope, you guys all good? Anybody else in the room for the good of the order? Going, gone. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this really wonderful organization. And thank you guys for coming. Yeah.